She said it like it was nothing. Like asking for another drink. He never dances with me, will you? And somehow, everything, the music, the chatter, the glittering light, just stopped moving for a second. I'd noticed her long before she spoke to me. Everyone had, I think. The way she carried herself, not loud, not trying, just there, in that silver dress that caught light like it had been designed to find her. She smiled politely when people spoke, nodded when they complimented her husband, and yet her eyes looked like they were somewhere else entirely. When our gazes met the first time, it wasn't dramatic. Just a small accident, over the rim of my glass. But she didn't look away immediately. There was a half-second pause, long enough to make it impossible to forget. I wasn't supposed to even be near her. She was his wife, the man who signed my checks, the one who never loosened his tie, not even at a party. But she drifted toward me during a slow song, holding a drink that had long gone warm, looking like she needed an excuse to move. "Everyone's either too drunk or too busy pretending they're not," she said, almost to herself. I laughed softly, trying to be polite, trying to sound casual. "And you?" "I'm pretending too," she said, then tilted her head. "You're quieter than the others." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just shrugged. She smiled, not the kind people give for photographs. It was slower, smaller. Real. Then she set her glass down, and that's when she said it, softly, but with a trace of challenge. "He never dances with me, will you?" The words shouldn't have meant anything. But they did. Maybe because of the way her hand hovered, waiting. Maybe because the music was slow, low, and a little sad. Or maybe because, for the first time that night, she wasn't pretending. I nodded. Her fingers brushed mine first, light, deliberate. Her perfume was faint, warm, and it lingered in the air between us. I could feel the pulse at her wrist as she placed her hand in mine, steady but faintly trembling. We stepped into the rhythm awkwardly at first. She laughed, quiet, nervous, like she wasn't used to being close to someone who didn't already know her story. I tried not to look directly at her, but every time I glanced away, my eyes found their way back. There was something unspoken in the way she moved, something careful, practiced, and tired. Like she'd learned how to make space for other people's carelessness. But here, with my hand at her waist, she didn't seem tired anymore. She looked up at me once, and it felt like the air thinned. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said softly. "I wasn't," I lied. Her smile faltered just enough to tell me she didn't believe it. The music slowed again, people laughing louder now, but all I could hear was her breathing, quiet, even, close. When the song ended, either of us moved right away. Her hand stayed against my chest a moment longer than it should have. Then, a voice cut through the air. "Honey?" It was him. Her husband. My boss. Standing at the edge of the crowd, looking for her. She exhaled, her hands slipping away from mine, leaving behind the faint warmth of contact that already felt like a secret. She turned, fixing her expression before she faced him, and for the briefest second, just before she walked away, she looked back at me. Not a smile. Not regret. Just that same half-second pause. The one that meant I wouldn't forget. I didn't see her again for weeks after that night. Not at meetings, not in the hallways, not even in the photographs from the company page. It should have made it easier to forget. But it didn't. Then one late Friday, when most of the office had emptied, I caught her reflection in the glass wall near reception, soft gray cardigan, hair tied back, her phone pressed to her ear. I almost walked past, but she noticed me before I could. "Working late?" she asked after hanging up. "Trying to look productive," I said. "You?" She smiled faintly. "Trying not to go home too early." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it just carried too much meaning for something so casual. I found out later, in small pieces, through office whispers and half-finished sentences, that her marriage had been polite. They weren't cruel to each other, just distant. Like two people who'd agreed to share the same silence. I don't know why that made me ache for her, but it did. That night, she stayed near my desk under the pretense of reviewing a proposal. We stood close enough for me to smell the faint citrus in her perfume, see the faint exhaustion beneath her foundation. Her fingers brushed mine when she handed me a folder, and she froze, just for a heartbeat, before pulling back. "Sorry," she murmured, voice softer than usual. I shook my head. "You don't have to be." Her eyes flicked up to mine, brief, unreadable, before she changed the subject. But her hands trembled slightly as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. We talked about small things, the way office politics never changed, how the coffee was terrible, how people stopped noticing the sunsets once they started staying late too often. Then, her voice lowered. "You ever feel like you've already used up all your chances?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't think so," I said after a pause. "Maybe we just stop recognizing them when they show up." Her lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite sadness. "You sound too young to say things like that." "Maybe I just notice things," I said. She looked at me longer this time, and didn't look away when she should have. The space between us felt charged, impossibly fragile. The hum of the air conditioner filled the room, and somewhere far below, the city buzzed like another world we didn't belong to. When she finally moved, it was only to adjust the papers, her hand brushing mine again, deliberately this time, slower. "Good night," she whispered. Her hand lingered an inch above mine, her breath close enough that I could feel it trace my skin before she pulled away completely. "Good night," I echoed, though she was already halfway to the elevator. The doors closed behind her, but the air she left behind felt heavier, warmer, like the beginning of something neither of us wanted to name. It started as a habit. Stolen moments in the break room, shared elevator rides, brief exchanges that lasted too long. We didn't plan it, but we didn't stop it either. That Thursday evening, the office was empty again, lights dimmed, windows catching the city's orange dusk. I'd stayed behind to finish a report. She said she'd just review something quickly. Neither of us believed that. She stood beside my desk, watching the screen as if the numbers meant anything. Her sleeve brushed my arm once, then again, accidentally on purpose. I could feel the warmth radiating off her, small, magnetic, dangerous. "You work too much," she said softly. "You come by too often," I said back. She smiled without looking at me. "Maybe I just like quiet places. Or people who listen." Her eyes flicked toward me, sharp and tender at the same time. "That too." The hum of the computer filled the silence that followed. Every second felt longer than it should. I turned slightly, and suddenly we were close enough that I could see the faint reflection of the city lights in her pupils. She didn't step back. Her voice lowered. "You know this is a bad idea?" I finished. She exhaled, a quiet laugh escaping, like she was tired of pretending she didn't know how dangerous this was. "Yes. Exactly that." The air between us felt fragile. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, something warm, with a hint of amber. My hand hovered near hers on the desk. Just close enough that if either of us moved an inch, something irreversible would happen. Then, the sound of footsteps in the hallway. We both froze. The door handle rattled once before a coworker's voice called out, "Hey, you still here?" Her hand flew from mine. She stepped back so fast the chair creaked. I answered, too quickly, "Yeah, just wrapping up." The door opened halfway. A young analyst poked his head in, grinning. "Burning the midnight oil?" "Just making sure the presentation's perfect," she said smoothly. Her tone was light, practiced, but her pulse, visible at her neck, betrayed her. He nodded, oblivious. "Cool. Night, guys." When the door closed again, neither of us moved. The silence was deafening. Her eyes met mine. A faint, breathless smile. "That was close." "Too close," I said, though part of me didn't mean it. She laughed once, quiet, nervous. Then her voice softened. "You make me forget how careful I used to be." She turned slightly, as if to leave, but I reached out, not grabbing, just stopping her movement with a light touch on her wrist. She didn't pull away. Her breath caught. I shouldn't, she began, but her words trailed off as her gaze fell to my mouth, then back to my eyes. The space between us disappeared until I could feel the warmth of her breath against my cheek. But before the moment could break, she whispered, barely audible, "Don't." And still, she didn't move away. We stood there, two people frozen between want and consequence, knowing that after tonight, pretending would never be enough again. It rained the night everything almost happened. The kind of steady, quiet rain that blurred the city lights into soft streaks, a perfect excuse for staying late. She found me in the conference room, sleeves rolled up, tie loose, papers scattered. I didn't even hear her come in until she spoke. "You'll catch a cold working in this air conditioning," she said gently, closing the door behind her. "I could say the same about you," I replied without looking up. She didn't answer right away. Just walked closer, her heels muted against the carpet, until I felt her presence beside me, the faint warmth, the scent I'd come to know too well. "I thought you'd be home," I said finally. Her voice was soft. "I didn't want to go home." That single sentence held too much. I looked up. Her eyes were tired, her hair slightly damp from the rain, a few strands clinging to her skin. She looked human in a way I'd never seen before. "Rough night?" I asked quietly. She gave a hollow laugh. "You could say that. He forgot our anniversary." Again. Something inside me tightened, not pity, not shock, just a sharp, protective anger I didn't know how to hide. "You deserve better than that." She smiled faintly. "That's not your line to say." "Maybe it should be." Her breath caught, just a small sound, but it felt like a door unlocking somewhere between us. She looked away, then back. "You don't understand what this would mean." "I do," I said, standing up. "I think that's why I can't stop thinking about it." The words hung there, heavier than the silence that followed. She stepped back once, but I matched it, not out of confidence, out of something I couldn't name anymore. The air felt too thin, too charged. "Don't," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "Tell me to stop and I will." She didn't. Her eyes darted to my hand when I reached up, hesitating, before brushing the wet strand of hair from her face. My fingertips grazed her cheek, and she inhaled sharply, her lips parting but no words came out. The world outside the glass felt distant, the rain, the city, everything fading until there was only this moment. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she murmured again, echoing the night of the party. "I've been trying not to," I said, voice low. "It's not working." She closed her eyes. "You're too young to understand what you're risking." I stepped closer. "Then explain it to me." Her hand pressed lightly against my chest, not to push me away, just to steady herself. "It's not fair," she said, her voice almost breaking. "You make me remember what it's like to want something I can't have." I leaned in, close enough to feel her words against my skin. "Then stop pretending you don't." Her eyes opened, wet and bright, and for a heartbeat, the distance between us disappeared, her breath against mine, her hand trembling at my collar. And then, a phone rang. The sound shattered everything. She froze, turned away, fumbling for her bag with shaking hands. The name flashing on the screen glowed between us like a warning. Her husband. She answered, voice steady but eyes wide, the echo of what almost happened still pulsing in the air. When she hung up, she whispered without turning back, "This can't happen again." But her reflection in the glass, flushed, trembling, alive, said something else entirely. The next few days were unbearable. She avoided me with careful precision, polite nods in the hallway, distant smiles during meetings, not a single word beyond what was necessary. But the silence between us wasn't empty. It buzzed. Every time she turned away, it felt like something unfinished pulled at both of us. Then came the day of the quarterly presentation. She sat near the front beside her husband, who, for once, had actually shown up. He looked every bit the executive, perfect posture, unreadable expression. She, on the other hand, looked brittle beneath the polish. When it ended, people congratulated him, not her. She stood beside him, smiling like it didn't matter. But I caught her glancing at me once, not the kind of look that could be explained away. The kind that said everything we'd been pretending not to feel. Later that evening, I was packing up when the door opened. It was her. "Everyone's gone," she said. Her voice didn't sound sure of itself. I noticed. She hesitated, then walked in, closing the door quietly. "You weren't at the dinner. I thought I should stay away." Her lips pressed together. "Probably for the best." But she didn't leave. For a moment neither of us spoke. I heard the faint hum of the lights, the tick of the wall clock, the uneven rhythm of her breathing. Then she said quietly, "He saw us that night. The night it rained." My heartbeat stuttered. "What?" "He didn't say anything. But I know he did. He asked why I smelled like your cologne." She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting together. I lied. I took a step closer. "What did you tell him?" "That I dropped by your office for work." She laughed once, short and bitter. "He believed it. Or maybe he wanted to." The space between us felt smaller than the room itself. "You didn't have to protect me." Her eyes flicked up. "It wasn't about protecting you." The confession hung there, trembling in the air. I moved closer. "Then what was it about?" She exhaled shakily. "Because if I admitted what really happened, or almost happened, I wouldn't have stopped." Her voice broke on the last word. The honesty in her face hit harder than any touch. I reached out before I could think better of it, my hand brushing against hers. She didn't pull away, but she did close her eyes, as if steadying herself. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I know. And yet you are. Because you came looking for me." That made her laugh, barely. Her shoulders trembled, somewhere between relief and defeat. When she opened her eyes again, they looked different, no longer defensive, just tired of pretending. "You're going to ruin me," she said softly. "Or save you," I answered. She shook her head, taking a slow breath, stepping closer until her perfume filled the space between us again. "Maybe there's no difference anymore." And then, quietly, she said, "If I see you again after tonight, I won't stop myself next time." Her hand brushed mine, deliberate, final, before she walked past me and out the door, leaving behind the sharp scent of rain and a truth that couldn't be taken back. It had been almost a month. Long enough for the office gossip to fade, for life to pretend to go back to normal. But nothing about me felt normal anymore. Then, one evening, when the sky turned the color of wet slate, I found her waiting in the lobby. No husband, no polished smile, just her, standing quietly, holding her coat like she wasn't sure if she meant to come inside at all. "I shouldn't be here," she said the moment our eyes met. "You already said that last time," I replied. A small, tired laugh. "And yet here I am again." We didn't speak after that, just walked, side by side, down the empty corridor until we reached the conference room. The same one where everything had nearly happened. She closed the door behind us, her hands shaking slightly. "I tried," she began. "I really tried to forget that night. But I keep..." Her voice broke. "You keep what?" I asked softly. She looked at me then, really looked, and something inside her seemed to give way. "I keep hearing your voice when I'm supposed to be somewhere else. I keep thinking about your hand on mine. I keep missing something I never even had." For a moment, neither of us breathed. The rain started again outside, steady and familiar, like it had been waiting for this. I stepped closer. "Then don't keep pretending." She didn't move. Not forward, not back. Just stood there, trembling, eyes fixed on mine. "This isn't fair to you," she whispered. "I'm older. I'm married. You have your whole life ahead of you." "Maybe," I said. "But none of it feels right without you in it." Her lips parted, a soundless breath, somewhere between disbelief and surrender. My hand rose slowly, hesitantly, until my fingers brushed her jaw. She didn't stop me. Her skin was cool, rain-damp, and soft under my thumb. "You don't have to say anything," I murmured. She shook her head. I don't want to lie anymore. The words came out so quiet they barely existed. We were inches apart now, close enough that I could feel her heartbeat through the space between us. She reached up, fingers grazing the side of my face, tracing a line that felt both dangerous and right. If we do this, she began, her voice trembling. I know, I said. Everything changes. For a heartbeat, the world felt suspended, the city lights reflected in the glass, the sound of rain, the rhythm of two people who had run out of reasons not to. She leaned forward, so close her breath mingled with mine. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then don't move. Time slowed. Her forehead rested against mine. Nothing happened, and yet everything did, the kind of closeness that felt like confession, forgiveness, and desire all at once. Then she pulled back, just slightly. Now you understand, she said softly. I do. Her eyes closed, a tear catching the corner of her smile. And that's why we can't. But when she turned to leave, my hand caught hers, not to stop her, just to hold the truth between us. We both knew what the choice was. And that, somehow, was enough. Spring came quietly, as if trying not to disturb anything that had already broken. A few months had passed since that night, the one that ended not with a kiss, but with everything that could have followed it. She left the company 2 weeks later. Said she wanted a fresh start. No one questioned it. People change jobs all the time. But I knew better. She was escaping the noise, the eyes, the risk of seeing me every day. Still, she called once. No greeting, no small talk. Just, do you ever think about that night? Every day, I said. She was quiet for a long time, then whispered. I didn't think anyone ever saw me the way you did. And then she hung up. After that, nothing. Months of silence. Until one evening in early May, I saw her again, by accident, or maybe not. A small art cafe by the river, the kind of place that smelled of coffee and rain. She was sitting by the window, reading something she wasn't really reading. When she looked up and saw me, she smiled, that same quiet, half-second pause from the night of the party. I didn't hesitate this time. I walked over, heart hammering like it hadn't learned to calm down. She closed her book, almost shyly. You look different, she said softly. So do you. There was no pretense left between us now. Just the faint hum of traffic outside, the scent of her perfume, and the warmth that never really left. Did you ever tell him? I asked. She shook her head. No. Some truths only ruin things. I chose to keep the part that still feels good. And what part is that? This, she said, reaching across the small table, fingers brushing mine. The knowing. I turned my hand, letting our fingers lace together, not like a secret anymore, but like something we'd finally stopped running from. No one in the cafe cared. We were just two people holding hands, nothing scandalous about it. But to us, it was everything. You were right, she said quietly. Everything changed. Was that bad? She smiled, a real one this time, soft around the edges. No. Just different. Sometimes different is what we need to feel alive again. The rain started outside, soft against the glass, the same sound that once kept us apart, now somehow pulling us closer. I stood, moved around to her side of the booth. She didn't flinch when I sat beside her. Just leaned in until her head rested lightly on my shoulder. For a long while, we didn't speak. Just breathed quietly in sync, her fingers tracing slow, absent circles on my palm. No promises. No explanations. Just peace, the kind that comes when two people finally stop pretending they weren't meant to find each other. I pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, not out of impulse, but understanding. She smiled without opening her eyes. We didn't need words anymore. We'd already said everything worth saying in the spaces between what we couldn't. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?